Have you ever stared at an exam paper and just wondered, what are they really trying to figure out about me? Well, today we're going to deconstruct a major social science exam. We're not just looking at the questions, we're trying to uncover the hidden story, what it tells us about the knowledge and skills we're all expected to have.
We've all been there, right? The pressure's on, you're staring at the paper, but beyond just finding the right bubble to fill in, what's an exam like this actually designed to measure? We're going to peel back the layers and see what's really being tested underneath the surface.
So here's the game plan. First, we'll look at the big picture, the exam's overall framework. Then, we'll dive into the core subjects, history, geography, politics, and economics. After that, we'll see where all that knowledge gets put to the test in the real world before zooming back out to figure out what it all means.
Okay, so how on earth do you make sense of 39 different questions? Well, you need a system, right? The analysis we're digging into gives us a really powerful framework. Think of it like a special lens that helps us see the patterns and priorities hidden inside the test.
And this is it. This is our roadmap. It takes all that complexity and neatly sorts it into 5 core pillars: history, geography, political science, economics, and, this is the really interesting one, applied skills. This is how we're going to decode the exam's DNA.
All right, let's jump right into our first 2 pillars. We're starting with the foundations, history and geography. I mean, these subjects literally tell us where we come from and where we stand, so let's see how the exam handles them.
You know, a lot of the time, the exam kicks off with some straightforward factual recall. This question about Rome, it's a classic example. It's a direct test of one specific piece of knowledge. It's basically signaling right away that, yep, you need to know some broad global history. And then, boom, we jump from ancient Rome straight to modern India, identifying Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel as the Iron Man. That requires very specific knowledge of the nation's own history. What this really shows you is the incredible range being tested, from ancient world history to key national figures.
But it doesn't just stop at simple facts, not by a long shot. The exam quickly pivots to demanding a much deeper level of analysis. You're not just asked what happened, but you're asked to explain the long-term effects of huge forces like imperialism. You have to connect the dots between events and things like the economy and the rise of nationalism.
Now let's switch gears over to geography. And guess what? We see a really similar pattern. It starts with the basics. This question right here is pretty much a vocabulary test. You either know that Regur soil is another name for black soil, or you don't. It's a fundamental term for understanding India's agriculture. And just like with history, the geography questions ramp up in complexity pretty fast. Suddenly, it's not about a single definition anymore. Now you have to describe the entire distribution of a major national resource, like iron ore. This means you have to connect geography to economics and infrastructure. It's all linked.
Okay, so how do we all manage to live together? How do we organize ourselves as a society? Well, that brings us to our next 2 pillars, political science and economics. Let's take a look at how the exam tests your understanding of how our democracy and our economy actually work.
Check this one out. The way this question is framed is pretty clever. It's not about memorizing a line from a book, it's about understanding a core principle. To get this right, you have to know that secularism is a fundamental part of the Indian Constitution. The wrong answer is the one that completely goes against that idea.
And the analysis gets even deeper, wading into the messy, practical reality of how a democracy works. You're not just asked to define a political party. No, you have to explain what they do and then critically analyze the real-world problems they face, like internal democracy or dynastic succession. Shifting over to our 4th pillar, economics, we see that same pattern pop up again. It starts with some foundational knowledge. For instance, knowing the popular name for the Consumer Protection Act. It's a direct test. Are you familiar with this key piece of legislation?
But again, it doesn't stay there. The exam quickly goes from definitions to real-world impact. You need to connect that act to the actual rights it gives people, and then analyze the effects of a massive force like globalization, thinking about everything from more choices at the store to its impact on jobs.
And that brings us to our 5th and final pillar. And honestly, this is the one where everything really comes together. This is all about application. It's not just about what you know anymore. It's about what you can actually do with what you know.
So take a look at this case study on Belgium. The exam gives you a short text with all the context you need. The 2 main languages, the regions they live in, and this historical power imbalance where the French-speaking minority was often wealthier.
And here's the brilliant part. This question doesn't require any prior knowledge about Belgium. It's a pure test of your analytical skill. Can you read a passage, grasp the social dynamics at play, and pull out the correct reason for the tension based only on the information you were just given?
The other crucial applied skill being tested is cartography. Yep, good old map work. And again, it's not about just memorizing dots on a map, it's about visually connecting ideas from the other pillars, like linking a historical site or an economic hub like a steel plant to its actual physical location on a map.
So we've walked through all these different questions across all 5 of our pillars. What does it all add up to? What's the bigger picture here? What is this exam's design really telling us about what it values most?
Well, when you put all the pieces together, a really clear picture starts to form. This exam isn't just a one-trick pony. It's a carefully balanced assessment that's designed to measure 2 things in equal measure: what you know and what you can do with what you know.
So, let's nail down the key takeaways. First, the coverage is incredibly comprehensive. Second, it deliberately tests a whole range of thinking skills, from simple memory recall all the way up to complex analysis. Third, it's deeply rooted in the Indian context. And finally, it puts a huge value on applying knowledge to real-world situations. Ultimately, the goal here isn't just to see if you can remember things. It's to evaluate something much, much deeper: a student's ability to connect the dots. It's about seeing how history, geography, politics, and economics all weave together to create one big, coherent story of our world.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? This exam clearly tries to build a complete picture by blending facts with analytical and practical skills. But is this kind of balanced approach truly the best way to measure how well a student understands our incredibly complex and interconnected world? It's definitely something to think about.